The Mahabharata is not a story of a single war, but a chronicle of destiny. It is an epic of heroes and villains, of duty and destruction. Yet, the fate of the entire Kuru dynasty, the fate of the millions who fell at Kurukshetra, was determined not by a sword nor a chariot, but by a simple, terrifying force: the power of the spoken word. In the world of the ancient rishis and kings, a curse was not a magical spell. It was karma, delivered immediately. It was a vow of divine justice, a consequence so severe it could shatter the life of a great king and irrevocably shift the course of history. Today, we delve into the single most devastating, most crucial curse in the entire epic. The curse that changed the very parentage of the heroes, defined the central conflict, and made the Great War not just possible, but inevitable. This is the story of King Pandu, the curse that made him an exile, and the divine intervention that birthed the five heroes, the Pandavas, who were destined to stand against their cousins, the Kauravas. Before the conflict, before the dice game, and before the birth of the 100 Kaurava brothers, the throne of Hastinapura belonged to a man named Pandu. Pandu was the younger son of Vichitravirya, though born through the Niyoga tradition to sage Vyasa. He was the reigning king only because his elder brother Dhritarashtra was born blind. Pandu was a figure of magnificent qualities. His name literally means the pale one, and he was as pale in appearance as he was radiant in his virtues. He was a brilliant administrator, a fierce general, and a master archer. He conquered territories for the Kuru dynasty, making Hastinapura the most powerful kingdom of its age. He was married to two women, the beautiful and wise Kunti and the enchanting Madri. After securing the borders of his kingdom, Pandu decided to step away from the opulence of the palace for a period of rest and sport. He retreated with his two wives to the lush, unspoiled forests at the foot of the Himalayas, intending to spend his days in hunting and contemplation. It was in this peaceful, isolated forest that Pandu's fate and the fate of the world was sealed by a single catastrophic error. One spring day, while hunting with his bow, King Pandu sighted a magnificent pair of deer in a secluded glade. The deer were completely engrossed in their union, their attention absorbed by one another. Pandu, blinded by the thrill of the hunt and not wanting to let such a rare prize escape, did not hesitate. He raised his bow, took aim, and fired an arrow. The arrow struck the male deer, and as the creature collapsed, a chilling supernatural transformation occurred. The dying deer's form dissolved, revealing a human being, Sage Kindama, lying mortally wounded in the forest, his wife weeping hysterically beside him. Pandu, horrified, dropped his weapon. He was a king, sworn to uphold dharma, but he had committed a sin greater than simple murder. He had killed a sage, the holiest of men, and he had done so at the most sacred moment, the act of creation. Sage Kindama, his eyes burning with a final consuming rage, fixed his gaze upon the king who had ended his life and his love. With the last of his breath, he uttered the words that would change the course of the world. "O King Pandu, you have killed me at a moment when I was lost in the highest joy. I was harming no one, and yet you, in your thoughtless sport, have brought this sacred moment to a violent end.
For this I curse you. Listen closely, king of the Kurus. The very desire you sought to satisfy by hunting will be the instrument of your doom. The moment you are overwhelmed by passion and attempt to unite with either of your wives, that moment your heart will cease to beat and you shall follow me to the realms of death." The sage died. The silence that followed was heavy with the weight of destiny. Pandu, overwhelmed by the immensity of his transgression and the terrible weight of the curse, knew his life as a king was over. The curse wasn't just a threat of death, it was an absolute prohibition on the very purpose of a king's life, to sire an heir. Pandu performed the final rites for the sage and his wife. He then stood before Kunti and Madri and made a monumental decision. He returned to Hastinapura not as a conqueror, but as an ascetic. To atone for his sin, he declared his elder brother, the blind Dhritarashtra, as the ruling sovereign. He then returned to the forest, taking Kunti and Madri with him to live a life of celibacy and austerity. This single event, the death of a sage and the subsequent curse, achieved three things that were vital to the epic. It removed the rightful king, Pandu, from the throne, giving the blind Dhritarashtra a permanent claim and setting the stage for the jealousy of his son, Duryodhana. It ensured that Pandu could not father children, creating a crisis for the royal lineage. And most importantly, it created the need for a miracle.
The years passed. Pandu lived the life of an ascetic, surrounded by his two wives. But the anxiety of the barren Kuru line weighed heavily on him. He had two beautiful wives, but the curse, like a great dam, held back the flow of destiny. He knew that if he died without a son, his ancestors would never find peace, and his entire dynasty would be lost to history. In a moment of deep despair, he confided in his chief queen, Kunti, revealing his desperation for a son. He expressed his deepest sorrow: to be a powerful king, to have two loving wives, and yet to be cursed to be nothing more than a childless hermit. And here is where the thread of an older story, a previously cast boon, intervened to break the curse's grip. Kunti, the daughter of the king of the Yadavas, possessed a secret. Before her marriage, she had devoutly served the volatile sage Durvasa. The sage, known for his ability to both bless and curse, had, in return for her service, given her a powerful and unique mantra, a divine boon. This mantra allowed her to summon any god of her choice and beget a child by that deity. Kunti, in her youth, had tested the mantra, and by mistake summoned the sun god, Surya, leading to the birth of her first son, Karna, whom she had abandoned in secret. Now, facing the calamity of the Kindama curse, Kunti revealed this great secret to her husband. Pandu was overwhelmed with relief and purpose. He understood that while the curse forbade him from personally fathering a son, the boon could provide a workaround, a way to have sons who were still his in spirit and his heirs by right of his wife. He instructed Kunti to call upon the gods to ensure their sons possessed the finest qualities of the universe. The righteous Dharma to father Yudhishthira, the king of justice. The mighty Vayu, the wind god, to father Bhima, the warrior of immense strength. The divine king of the gods, Indra, to father the supreme archer, Arjuna. The first three Pandavas, Yudhishthira, Bhima, and Arjuna, were born in the forest, their existence a direct, deliberate consequence of a king's sin and a sage's dying word. They were Pandu's sons, but they were not. Their divine parentage ensured their superiority, but their strange lineage, born to a father who could not touch their mother, would forever be a shadow over their claim to the throne. Finally, Kunti shared the mantra with Madri, and she summoned the Ashwini Kumaras, the twin celestial physicians, who gave birth to Nakula and Sahadeva. And so, the Kindama curse, meant to end the Kuru line, instead transformed it. It gave birth to 5 heroes whose very existence became a threat to the sons of Pandu's blind brother, Dhritarashtra. The stage was set. The forest children, the divine sons of Pandu, were born to compete with the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra. But the curse was not done. The 5 boys grew up under the austere gaze of their father, Pandu. But as the years passed, the natural love between a husband and wife, suppressed for so long by the threat of death, began to bloom once more. One beautiful spring day, Pandu found Madri alone in the forest. Overwhelmed by desire, he forgot the dreadful word of the sage. He reached out to his wife. The curse, patiently waiting, struck immediately. True to Kindama's pronouncement, King Pandu died in Madri's arms, his life extinguished by the very passion he was forbidden. Madri, consumed by grief and guilt, chose to follow her husband into death by ascending his funeral pyre. Kunti was left alone to raise the 5 boys. With this final act, the Kindama curse was complete. It had killed the king, but in doing so, it had created the Pandavas. It shifted the throne to a blind king with 100 jealous sons and brought 5 divine-born brothers into the equation. The epic was now in motion. The Kindama curse was the catalyst, but it was just the first domino. In the full video, we will explore the curses of Karna, the final brutal fate delivered by the spoken word that ensured the Pandavas' victory at Kurukshetra.